neighborhoods of in this area and other areas that need proper drainage. And that would be my biggest point as far as we're concerned, homeowners right here. As far as all of this development goes as well, it struck me that EPA should probably be involved so we don't lose all this runoff ability and soaking up ability for the land, which would include the new developments and our neighborhoods. It's drainage and environment.
I'm Kathy Martinez, 197 Edgebrook. This has been happening for the past 3 years to us. We get it from the east. We're not the only ones. My neighbors next door, the Jensens, the one on the other side, Cindy and Dan, I think his name is. We're all getting killed. I know that Pat and Jerry Hart, Steve, I have pictures here from Friday. This is nothing. I can give you pictures from the last 3 years. It comes in, our entire backyard is underwater. Our garage, we might as well just chop it up and throw it out. That's how crap it is. Friday, again, it gets in there. It gets through the garage, through the side, into the driveway. Then it comes around the side and goes into the crawl space. It's really wearing on our house. Now, we don't really get flooded from the creek unless like September. September killed us, obviously 87 killed us. But this is just, it's nuts. And it's like I said, it's our neighbors next door. And like he said, he did follow it. And then one night, the best one was in February when I actually got Alderman Knipe out of bed on a Saturday night because I couldn't get anybody's attention when the water pipe broke on Oakwood, like I said, in February when it was freezing, and our backyard, froze. It went into the garage. It went down everywhere. It went into the crawls. It was like an ice pit. And then finally, like I said, Public Works really does work hard. Those guys I feel sorry for them. I mean, it was freezing cold. One guy finally came out about midnight or something like that. But it took him forever. Well, then it's too late. There's absolutely nothing in our garage aside from the freezer that he put up that's worth anything. Oh, and his motorcycle. But it's just garbage. And I don't know what to do. In February, because I know a couple of you knew about that, but my mom got sick and that took precedence over that, so I just, but now, after Friday, I was like, oh, I give up. Because it does stink, like he was saying. Last night, oh my God. I was sitting on Addison Road, we were by my friends, had a bunch of people, all of a sudden we're like, what stinks? I mean, it smelled, you guys had it smell it last night. That's the first time I've ever smelled. I don't know what Steve said and what he said. There is crap all over the place. I couldn't, was it Friday morning when I told you the source? I took pictures of that too. I could not believe that. The source just came up so fast in front of my house. I've never seen that before. Something has also changed. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it is. But we've been here since '82. I used to think I knew how that went. I don't anymore. And I said, what's killing us is everything. It doesn't matter how much it rains, we get flooded from the east. When it really floods, well then, we're just going to buy a boat. We're not going to move. And I don't want to be one of those creek people because we're not one of the creek people. We live in Wooddale. I love Wooddale. I've been wanting to live here since I was 12. But like Steve said, we really need somebody to get over there. All that building, all that cement, all that concrete. Like I said, I can show you pictures here where it's just, all our grass, everything's going. So we really need you guys to do something. And I saw some of the studies. I also saw that if you were only one house and you had a problem with your backyard, whatever. I read something like that. So, but if you had more than one house, well, we do have more than one house. I think what we need, and I'll do it if I have to, because you guys know I was just on that committee, or that I joined the CERT thing. I'll go door to door to find out how many people are getting the back flood in their backyard that never used to on Edgebrook. Because, like I said, mosquitoes, but you don't even know what's out there anymore. We can't walk on the side of our house, can't walk out. The driveway's cracking up. Like I said, forget the garage. It's just, we really, really need your help over there. And like I said, I commend the city people, the work. They did do a good job, and thank you for the phone calls. That was nice. Didn't understand the second one, but, yeah. And same with the CERT committee. You kind of really didn't use it on Friday. You could have. I went out and I actually helped till I could and did what I could, but pretty much we know what to do. But I think maybe aside from the phone calls, which was nice, they could have called out some of the CERT people, so we could have went door to door and done something. So we thank you, and I'm sorry, and I appreciate you taking time out for us, because like Arthur said, your time is valuable, but we really, really need your help. Thank you.
I want to really briefly try to respond to the Martinez's in particular.
Just one
sure.
final note, just to repeat myself, actually. Our neighborhood needs better drainage system, and all this new development needs to be monitored, or at least have the consideration of EPA for all of those types of, the land and the soaking up of, you're taking away everything, you're creating flood conditions. So you can develop, but as long as you coordinate something that would protect against that. Anyway, those are the two issues. I'll just water.
Okay, one thing real quick too, what you did, like by Steve, it did take a lot of the water. I think that's what needs to be done on Oakwood, because a lot of those people that built or the ones that are rebuilding, they just buried right over the ditches. So now you got all that water and you got all that concrete going this way. And those people don't care. They just sit there. We had to move our water to make sure it goes in the street so we drain right. During September, and I had videotape, I saw people pumping right out their basements, coming straight down the driveway. I can show you films like you would not believe from September. So if you dig a ditch, I'll dig no, I can't. But I would help dig in the ditch if I could on Oakwood. But I think that would be a big help also. So, yeah, whatever.
You're both right, and Alderman Wesley spoke about the drainage study that's in the capital improvement plan budget, and that's exactly what it's about. It's to try to manage that flow that we're getting from these torrential downpours, in some cases not even all that torrential, that's running across the land, which is already saturated from months of too much rain, and causing the first flood of two floods, second being the one that comes from the creek. I've lived on Forest View since 1973, seen a lot of floods. I've owned a house on Forest View for 11 years. In the last 2 years, I've had to run multiple pumps in my basement, and my parents who also live on Forest View, I now run a pump in their garage. And they're high land. That's all this surface water that we're talking about. My theory is, and I think it's a pretty sound one, we know we were in a 12-year technical drought. During that period of time, we experienced a building boom. During that building boom and not a lot of rain, we crossed over point of critical mass, meaning the density of all the new construction finally reached that point where the land isn't able to shed it or absorb it anymore. We come out of that building boom and that 12-year drought with 500-year flood and more rain than we actually saw quantity-wise in a 24-hour period in '87, and you realize the adverse effects of what I consider overbuilding. So not only do we have the money for this drainage issue in a few areas in town, but Oakwood, Edgebrook, Forest View, and Harvey for sure. We are also very close to finishing a new zoning ordinance that is better addressing the mansionization of Wooddale. It may be too little too late, but it's been identified that those are all real problems. And at least as far as the drainage problem and what the Martinezes are talking about, I really hope to be able to get that resolved in the next year or so, or two, whatever it takes to finish the study, to finish the engineering, and to come up with the funds for that. Because the drainage is absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, the city of Wooddale's problem, and needs to address that. The ultimate height of the creek, caused by everybody building to the north of us. It's a county and state issue. I don't know how much we can really do about that. But this drainage issue, absolutely, I'm convinced that this council, this city needs to deal with that. Thank you.
I do have a question on the reservoir. Mr. Mayor, I understand that you're the one that gets the phone call from the county when they open that reservoir. And I was wondering if there's a way of informing the alderman of that ward or notifying the alderman that the reservoir is open. How does that go about?
I think I did call you and tell you that.
No, I called you.
Okay. So, yeah, once I got the phone call, I first called the, the police chief. So he notifies the sergeant on duty for those people calling into the police department. And then I notify all the aldermen who have expressed an interest for that information.
Okay.
And then I call some of the residents as well, like George got the word out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else care to address the council? Okay. I appreciate your concerns. It will be put on the agenda, find out what the status is to hire the firm to do this study. I don't know where it's at right now. I will put it on the agenda and we'll see where that at. Meanwhile, we will talk to Public Works and go and wash those streets down. Am I right, John? And in the meantime, maybe we could look into a contract someone out to sweep those streets with the speed bump after we clean them, if there is a company out there, and see what we could do on that. All I could do for you right now until we get the study done. I can't tell you I'm going to solve it until I get the study done. Okay? But we could wash those streets down and get that all cleaned up, though. Okay, John?
And can we also ask staff to look at any possibility of sanitization of non-paved areas? Is there a neutralizing agent out there that won't kill plants and animals, that will, that will deal with the health concern in the grass areas?
We will look into it, and if there's anything we can do, barring going out and physically picking up or raking any of that debris up, and then physically just washing it down with mass quantities of water and diluting it down, those would be the two recommendations. But I will look at other alternatives as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll just continue with my committee now that we started it. Discussion on the other item that was on the agenda to discuss a part-time vehicle maintenance. I believe one of the aldermen asked to put this on the agenda. We did have this conversation. I would recommend, if the council chooses to go that route, that we direct staff to go ahead and hire a part-time mechanic, not to exceed over 200 hours, 20 hours a week, 2,000 hours, 20 hours a week. I'm sorry, 1,000 hours, 20 hours a week for a part-time mechanic. I would direct staff to do that if that's the council's direction that we are going to do. Alderman Luton?
Would you clarify if we have a union contract that defines part-time workers as non-union, or do we have no contract?
It would have to be put, Mr. Kramer, could you answer that question?
Correct. We would need to negotiate that during the contract negotiations, and both negotiate a new position description for a part-time vehicle mechanic and a pay scale for that position.
Then I would make a motion, we postpone this until we have a contract that's viable with this motion.
The question here is that if we go ahead, Mayor, tell me if I'm wrong or right, could we discuss this in open session, the contract issue, or do we have to do that in closed session, knowing that it's got to do with negotiations?
Well, it's on the agenda only as a discussion item.
Okay.
So you may discuss that in committee. If
Okay.
you decide you want to go forward, that is something that we have to notify our union attorney on, or our labor attorney on, and that is something that does need to be bargained.
So my point is that you're creating a conundrum because there's no definition of whether this is a union or a non-union position. And this should be resolved before we make this decision. I won't vote for anything until it's resolved.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
John, was there any discussion with the union at all on this? Did you contact the union?
Again, Mayor, is that, I don't mean to step out of line, could that be discussed in open session?
No, that is crossing the line.
Okay.
So my suggestion then, Mayor, maybe we need to take this into closed session since there is going to be a lot of conversation in this, and we bring it back on the table during council, next council meeting, to discuss the legal allegation with the contract.
All right, I'll add it to executive session as a personnel item.
Mr. Coase.
I would say we should put it on an executive session before we decide on anything.
Okay. So that item will be removed. Anyone else have a discussion on that? That item will be removed off this agenda tonight and be discussed in executive session at next council meeting. Items considered future meeting. Brush pickup. The other item that I'd like to bring to the attention that it ain't on the agenda today, but we did have a conversation with Clark Mosquito, and John will give you an update on that, when spraying will be started and how far we are into the mosquito project. John, want to give us an update on that?
Thank you, Chairman Wesley. I spoke with Clark Mosquito today, and we did a harborage route last night for the city, and that means any areas, the borders, the city of Wooddale got sprayed for nuisance mosquitoes. We did get some trap counts that were elevated, and we do expect a brood hatch in the next couple of days. So Clark Mosquito and I conferred again, looking at some additional trap counts, made the decision to do a citywide application Monday the 29th, which should take us through the holiday weekend, so residents can enjoy the outdoors a little bit more without the nuisance of mosquitoes.
New Zero Police.
After listening to the residents, I know we have the treatment plant study going on. I'd really like to know where we are with that, because I'm hearing sewers are backing up. Taking care of that plant should become a priority of the council, because that also would alleviate some of the problems on those streets.
John, you care to comment on that, the email you got from Smith Engineer?
I'll just say that staff is working with SEC on that treatment plan study. We are progressing on our task list, and you should be getting a new status report update at the next information items packet.
So basically, once we get this study, we're either going to go with the revamped treatment plant, making it expanding, whatever, or go with the new. So we're going to have to make a decision. Otherwise,
Mr. Colzelli, your item?
All right, last night they sprayed all over. I heard the guys spraying on our street, so I think they did the whole city last night,
No.
a part of the city. I know they did our end because I heard them last night, around 9:30, 10 o'clock. Went through.
Mr. Lewitton?
John, I'd like to ask you, and let me preface it first. I know that Clark does mosquito traps to get specimens for study. What is the result of the West Nile virus assessment?
Do you mean specifically in Wooddale?
I think that's where we live, yes.
Currently, we did have trap counts. No QX mosquitoes were found, which are the ones that carry West Nile virus. So currently, no, there is no West Nile virus in the city of Wooddale.
You brought up the question, did I want the city or a large area? Does that mean you have figures for a larger area? If so, what are they?
We do get data for other communities, neighboring communities. I did not bring that data with me, and I can get Clark Mosquito to give me an update, and I will forward that on to the council in information items.
If you just looked at it briefly, did you see any?
First of all, the only reason why I brought this up is to bring you up to date that we're going to be spraying. I'm sure he hasn't even looked at the data yet because he just got it. Okay, so I mean, I don't think he don't want to give you a raw answer. He wants to give you the honest answer. I mean, you put him on the spot. The only reason why I brought this up, I want you people to know that as aldermen and the people out there that we are going to start spraying this week. That's the only reason. I mean,
I think people should know whether there is a danger of a fatal disease being spread.
I understand that, but he does not have the data in front of him. So how could he answer it if he don't have the data in front of him?
By
Do you
saying
want him
he'll
to put him
come
on-
back, he'll come back with the answer next week. Or
That's fine,
or
but
the
you're
next
asking him on
session
the
we
spot
have.
tonight for it.
Is there anything wrong with putting an employee on spot?
But he ain't going to sit there and lie to the people if he don't have the info. So don't put the people on the spot. The other item that I want to add on the agenda is I want to add the study on the flooding issue, that what is the status on that contract to be awarded for the study that we put into the CIP project. And I appreciate that Dave McGrath will be at the next meeting to answer any other concerns that come. Mr. Nuzio.
I don't know if this is the spot, but I had asked the manager last week if we could get a spreadsheet of all the CIP projects so we know where we stand and get updated on a monthly basis. So when residents ask us, we have an answer.
Okay. Put that on the agenda. Alderman Roy Wesley.
Mr. Chairman, last week I brought up two things, was the part-time mechanic and about surface water drainage funding for that. And I was wondering, it wasn't on this agenda, if it could be put on the next committee agenda,
What was a part-time mechanic and what?
was surface water funding.
That was under finance.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think we have to look at South Cedar again. I'm sure everyone looked at those pictures that they received in their packet too, so. Thank you.
Okay. Any other items? Okay, make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Motion carries.
Okay, this is the continuation of the Planning, Zoning, and Building Committee meeting. The next item we'll be discussing is report and recommendation, logged in as case number 09-V3. This is the Wooddale Bowl located at 155 West Irving Park Road. This is a request for a front yard variation. In a brief summary, a request has been submitted by the owner of the Wooddale Bowl, Mr. Malone, to construct a patio on the front of the building, in between the building and the sidewalk. This would be a concrete patio, partially covered with awnings or some kind of a roof structure. It's my understanding that it would be pulled out from the building all the way to the edge of the property line, which is, I believe, within just a few inches of the sidewalk. Beyond that, we have some additional information from the owner as presented in the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, where he discussed a somewhat of a renovation or a slight reworking of the facade. Talked about the use of this patio, why he needs it. But beyond that, we have no other drawings or specifics. So I will actually ask if Mr. Malone would like to add anything to my premise before we begin discussion of this, since we have very little in front of us. I do believe we've all got the Plata survey and the perhaps the Zoning Board of Appeals minutes. I know I watched that meeting twice myself, but anything else you can add would be helpful. Thank you, Mr. Malone.
Well, My name is Mike Malone. I'm from Wooddale Bowl, 155 West Irving Park Road. I own the bowling alley, and I'm also a resident of Wooddale. I haven't gone to an architect yet, and I have somewhat of a problem drawing a patio. I don't know how to explain a patio other than to tell you that I'm making it out of stamped concrete, which is concrete where they use a form and colored dyes to make the concrete look better than just normal concrete. So there's a pattern to it. There's a lot of different patterns you could use. I've looked at some of the patios that you guys have approved in the past, and I know when you had concerns going up to the sidewalk, you had a concern about car traffic being able to hit an area. So I'm open to design, but the original design I came up with was to use a foundation wall rather than a guardrail, and then to put fencing on top of that, whether it was closed or open fencing, wouldn't make much of a difference. And then the awning part, the dimensions of the patio would be approximately 15 feet by 100 feet. The building kind of lends itself to thirds. They're about 50 foot wide each. It's the older 2/3 where the patio would be. The first 30 foot of that would be kind of more the covered area. The other 70 feet would be open on top. The awning would have a decorative feature that would continue into the 70-foot area just to kind of even out the building. And as far as the facade renovation, it was to remove the brown brick that's on the front of the building and go with a brick that's similar to what's on the west side, so that the entire building would kind of look more the same across the front than what it looks like now. So that's probably about all I can tell you about it.
Well, I did look at, what drawings we had, which was essentially a plat of survey with the outline of the patio on there, and I did see where the corners of the lot are, and you're like I said before, you're pretty much going up to that 5-foot sidewalk. That area last year was rezoned to the B4 zoning, which is the pedestrian-oriented, transit-oriented development. And one of the key elements of that was the 12-foot sidewalk. Now, I know that B4 zoning district ordinance talks about how if you have any outdoor obstructions for a seating area, that you still must maintain a 5-foot clear path for egress. However, I don't believe it was the intent of the ordinance to allow a permanent barrier cut into that 12-foot sidewalk. So that's my big obstacle with this. And additionally, as I've always said in the past with any variance, if I don't understand exactly what it's going to look like and how it's going to affect the aesthetics of a very major thoroughfare, I'm reluctant to see the merit in it. So, just to be straightforward with you, Mr. Malone, I'm concerned on those two issues, but I'll open it up to anybody else who has questions or comments.
If I could
But-
just comment
Sure.
on that comment. Some of the difficulty with designing it has to do with coming to you guys and seeing what maybe you're going to tell me I need to do somewhat. I mean, I could go with a guardrail and an open fence also. I'm not looking for you necessarily to design my patio, but I knew you were going to have commentary on what it ended up finally looking like. So as far as what it eventually is going to look like, I'm sure your input's going to help me determine that. So as far as it being an improvement, it's definitely going to be an improvement to what's there now. So.
It very well may be, but I don't know that. I mean, and and I mean this with all due respect. I mean, as a citizen and involved and a friend, I just kind of go back to my years in architecture school and what the professor said when I tried to talk my way through what I thought a project was going to look like. You know, just dazzle me on paper, and you get a pretty darn good chance of things moving ahead. So that's, you know, my personal theory on it. Obviously, I'll open it up now to everybody else. I think Alderman Lewitton did have his arm up first, and I'll go to Alderman Coles.
First, let me say that Mr. Malone is an honorable man, and I've known him for about 7 years now, and I've known him to have only the best intentions for the city and to work hard for the city, and he's held positions. And when we talk about his property, I want to make it separate from a personal relationship that we have. I have 5 reasons why I feel that this should be voted down. And one, and actually 2 of them you've already alluded to. One, we passed the B4 zoning laws, ordinances last year, and they are now the ordinance of the city of Wooddale. And these ordinances do not even include the business for which he's asking for this extension. He's running a tavern in the bowling alley, which is a sub-business of the it's a sub-business. It's in the bowling alley, but it's a sub-business. This is not in the allowable businesses in the B4. So this business shouldn't exist according to the law. Now, however, we have never decided if there's a grandfather clause should be added. We didn't add a grandfather clause, and we didn't say that we couldn't have a grandfather clause. So whether or not the business is legal or not in the B4, it would be illegal to extend the business because the extension would be after the ordinance was passed. Second, we just spent umpteen thousands of dollars for the Lakota Group to give us an opinion of what a city street should look like, among other things. And that's why I queried him to find out what his definition of a pedestrian street sidewalk should be. And he said that they should be between 9 and 10 feet, and that is the dimensions that you need for encouraging pedestrian traffic. If this is passed, it would mean that there would be only a 5-foot sidewalk, and there's no chance for any extension. The third thing is smoking. Mr. Malone wrote that the reason for this, and I'll just quote him in his own handwriting, the hardship is that the state made a smoking law which has greatly affected my business. The patio is being built to offset this negative effect. Now, if he were going to come into accordance with the B4 law, he would have to change the lounge into a restaurant so that food service would be at least 50% of his sales. Now, he's told us that there's only 15 feet from the door to the sidewalk. State law prohibits smoking within 15 feet of a door. That means from the door to the sidewalk and 15 feet to the west, it would be illegal to smoke. And that's a $250 ticket. And I think you're going to have a situation where people are going to walk out the door and they're going to light up right away. And then they're going to get hit with a $250 fine. The next thing is, and part of that is that if you do this and you give this permission, the next thing Tom Sack's going to want it, Aces is going to want it, everybody else who's got a bar and they want to have people outside smoking, they're going to ask for the same variance. If we don't give it to them, well, then we're just discriminatory. Then the other thing is, the third thing is the jug handle. We are in the process of creating an edge brook that's going to go under the railroad tracks and is going to take up part of this land. And we're going to be in negotiations with this man under eminent domain. And if that's the case, then this whole program is a detriment to our future negotiations for land use.
So are you saying you want to buy my property now? Is that what you're saying?
That would have to be discussed in closed session.
But I mean, you shouldn't make a basis of a decision for
Yes,
what I can
we
or
can
can't
make a
do on my
decision based on future land
property
use.
about some future use you have in mind.
Yeah, we have a use in mind, and it's already been published, and it's up for hearing. And it's
So what are
already
you telling
been,
me, that when you build the jug handle, that you're going to take the whole bowling alley? Is that what you're telling me?
no, we're taking part of it. It's up for discussion for taking part of that to
Okay.
the jug handle. And the fourth thing is, already, we have a lot of motorists who are illegally crossing the double yellow going eastbound to go into your bowling alley. In 2008, there were 51 arrests on the triangle between Wooddale Road.
And they're not going to
And
my bowling alley. They're
Edgebrook.
trying to get into left turn.
I
lane
have
to
been
turn on
almost
Wooddale
hit
Road.
twice by two arrogant drivers who went into the left-hand turn lane to the south Edgebrook, and they almost hit me when I was turning into Edgebrook. They were going into your bowling alley. They illegally make 30-degree turns across the left-south only turn lane to go north to go into your property. There have been 51 arrests. And using the mathematical equation of determining the number of violations, only 1 in 8 violations is ever noticed by the police department. That means that using that calculation, that means there are over 600 illegal turns into the properties on the north side